Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of the Geometric Pumpkin series for the UK Colour Pencil Society. The person behind the hands is Emma of Elkie Wilder and the Colour Pencil Shop. This was a technical challenge we set our members for October in 2024 where we have asked them to get really passionate about pumpkins and do lots of different things with pumpkins. So as I say, this is part 3. Today we're going to be doing watercolour pencil. So this version here is just watercolour pencil made wet, and then this version here is watercolour pencil made wet like this one, and then I've gone in and added in some dry pencil detailing with the same pencils. So I'm going to take you through step by step how to do that. Now I've already prepared the geometric pumpkin grid, so this is in the video that I filmed for part 1. So you need to have drawn your grid and make sure that you've got your pumpkin sections in all ready to go. So I've got a selection of watercolour pencils here. I've got Derwent watercolour, which I consider to be the most sort of traditional watercolour pencils there are in terms of the effects you get. But you could use any water soluble pencils, Supracolour, Albrecht Dürer. You could even go for Inktense, whatever you like. We're going to do a selection of sort of squash colours, so that's what I've gone through here. Some oranges and reds and greens and yellows. So pick a selection of colours that you like. We've also got some water and some brushes. Okay, so we're going to get going. And then we'll see how we go. So I'm going to start in the centre. Now, when I do this watercolour penciling, when I lay it down, I'm a bit kind of rough, to be honest, because we are going to add water and dilute this. So I don't worry too much about how neat I'm being, whether I'm filling in all the grain. I'm just adding the pencil really as quickly as I can. I'm sort of trying to get an even coverage, so I'm using some what's called scumbling strokes, so these round strokes you can see me doing here, and then also just back and forth strokes. So I'm not, as I say, I'm not too worried about it being really neat. I just want to get a colour down quite quickly at this stage. So this is where this differs a bit from colour pencil, because you'd probably be wanting that first layer to be really neat. I'm not too worried here, and you'll see why a little bit later when we add the water. It doesn't really make an awful lot of difference. Now what I'm going to do, you can see I've added colours all over the place. I'm going to start adding the colour now, and I'm going to do this quite haphazardly really. I just want a sort of tie-dye effect really, and I should have said earlier, I'm working on Inktense paper, Derwent Inktense paper. This was the 7x10 size that I've cut down to 7-inch. I do really like this paper actually. Use it quite a lot in my painting work when I do mixed media work. It can take quite a lot of water. So it's designed for the Inktense range, but any water media will work really well on this. So I'm just going to go around and add some colour in different places. This is a gold I've got here. I'm just doing it randomly really and very quickly, just in long strokes. It's really just giving us a base colour, and this is a quick way of getting down a layer of colour without hours of meticulously laying down your pencil. So obviously this wouldn't be a pure colour pencil piece, but I just wanted to show you some of the magic of using watercolour pencils. So I'm going to change colour now, pick another colour, and go for this orange. I'm going to keep hold of these pencils is next to us because we'll add some detailing with these colours once we've done our watercolour detailing. So I did make sure that I had my pumpkin segments drawn in, just so I've got an easy guide of where to go up to. All those decisions have already been made, really. You can see I'm not drawing from a reference at all. I don't have a real squash or pumpkin in front of me. This is all just you know, a bit of fun play, really, which is the type of art I like doing. I like just taking a concept and very loosely drawing it, giving sort of the essence of the thing, but it isn't really realistic, which is what I really enjoy doing. You see this colour does go down quite quick once you get going. See, if I'd done it smaller it would have taken a bit less time. But I've got nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. And you'll see when we come to add the water, yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun blending these colours, which is really my favourite bit. Once we get the water going on, and once we start blending the colours, I just really enjoy that part. So let's go for another orange. This one's a lighter one. I'm adding quite a few different colours to each one because it gives us lots of scope to play with that blending. This is, you know, you could also go for really different colours, do a tie-dye pumpkin, which I will be doing through the course of the technical challenge with our members. And just because I really love tie-dye and love playing with colour, so that would be a nice fun project for me to do. So I'm just sort of looking for just distributing the colours, really. Again, I haven't really started with a plan as such. I just kind of go intuitively. Oh, maybe that colour will look nice there. Haven't got much over here, you know. So, and I might change my mind in a minute as well and add some more colours in other places. So I'm going to add a bit of green up into this. You see, I'm not worried about blending the colours at this stage. I am sort of overlaying them a little bit. But when we add the water, all of that will happen by itself. So let's just see how we're going. Put some into there. So I'm now just trying to fill the gaps, really. Just going to have a look at this last colour, and then I might make some different decisions, adding in some others as we go. So just bear with me a minute. We're going to just fill these last bits. I sort of have roughly kept that line into the centre. just to give that idea of shape. But as I said, we're not going for really realistic here. You could of course use this template to do that. I'm just going for essence of pumpkin, if you like, or squash, if these colours are a bit more squash-like, aren't they? Let's just add a little bit of the darker green into this middle section. So I'm making decisions on the fly, really. I do want every section to be slightly different, which adds a lot of, adds lots more interest. And then I'm just going to add this dark one into this bottom bit. And then we can start the fun bit, which is adding all the water. Okay, so that's all our colour work down. And we'll now move on to adding water. I'm going to start adding the water now. This is a number 2 rigger. All brushes, they're all sort of, the sizing is all a little bit different across the brands. So, you know, you don't have to have exactly the same brushes or sizes as I've got, just as long as you're happy with, you know, the effect that you're getting with your brush, that you can control it. And you can see that you know, I'm not dissolving the pigment absolutely completely on the page. I am pretty much dissolving it, but I kind of want to keep that texture that the pencil and the paper has given me to give the pumpkin effect. So I'm just going to work with that because I really like it. So you can see I haven't got rid of it completely, but I have made it all wet. I'm just going to move my water over to this other side so I'm not leaning across the piece as I'm right-handed. Let's just get everything repositioned so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to work clockwise because I'm right-handed, and you can see I've just turned the page to get it easier for me. So I encourage you to do the same. Don't paint awkwardly and lose the position. Like, make sure that you're painting so it's comfortable. And I'm just going to add water. Now, as I said earlier, this bit is my favourite bit. I love seeing how the colours blend into, you can see they're blending on the page, which I just think is so much fun. I just get so much joy from this part of the process. I think it's like magic. See, there was a little bit of pigment there. It really doesn't matter, because this, you know, we're not drawing from life, we're not trying to replicate something exactly. This is just the spirit of the pumpkin, if you will. So it really doesn't matter if things are not perfect or not how you first envisioned, because no one's going to know. So there we go. So that's the first segment is in. And when we come to add the dry penciling, we can start to, you know, if there's any lines like that, we'll start to use the pencil detailing to disguise some of this. So I'm not too worried about anything like that. I could go to a bigger brush here, and I might well do that to show you on the next one. I quite like using these thinner brushes, but I will move to the other bigger brush I've got in a moment just to show you the difference. It just means you get the water down a bit quicker. You notice I'm not bothering to wipe my brush off each time. I'm actually just adding my water just because I want the colours to merge all into each other. So it's no big deal if they do, because it's all part of the effect, really. I find this process really slows me down and makes me really concentrate on what I'm doing. And I just don't think about anything else, which is really lovely because I have a really busy brain. So it's nice to just turn it off for a little bit. So I hope you experience a little bit of that piece as well when you're doing this. My segment here went a little bit over, but that's all right. So I was going to show you the bigger brush. So this is a size 4 round brush. Let's just see how good my precision is on this with a slightly bigger brush. Should go a little bit quicker with this. Always sort of starting thinner end to thicker end. I just like working that way. You could work the other way. You could work bigger end to this thicker end to thinner end if you wanted to. It's just my preference. So I'm constantly turning it to make sure I'm not leaning on anything that's wet. There we go. Actually, I'm doing fine with this brush. I can keep the definition. So we'll keep going with this brush because it will speed us up a little bit. So you just want to work around your pumpkin, add in your water. We'll need to let this dry before we go on to the next part of the process. So, nearly halfway round now. Depending on what paper you use, you will get different effects with how much the pigment dissolves or not. Also, I could dissolve this pigment a lot more. I'm choosing not to for this example because I like the texture for the pumpkin, but you know, the Derwent Inktense paper does have a little bit of tooth to it, so you can see that it's leaving some of the texture which you might not like, so you can obviously dissolve this more if you want to, or use a smoother paper would get you smoother results. I got a slightly smoother result on my example pumpkins because the grain was smoother. I mean, I still had that slightly grainy effect, which is what I wanted, but this is where you can really experiment with this template. Once you've got your pumpkin drawn, and you can transfer it to all different surfaces and really experiment with different options with this. So for the UK Colour Pencil Society, this piece would count as mixed media, even though it is watercolour pencils. Once you've added water to the pencils, they become mixed media because you've dissolved the binder in them. But as long as the piece is 50% colour pencil, dry colour pencil, then it's eligible to be entered into our exhibitions and competitions, etc. I personally really like combining mediums like pencils with watercolour, crystalline watercolour, water soluble pastels, all sorts. I love just experimenting, really. That's what I really enjoy doing. So I'm hoping I'll encourage you to get experimenting too. So we're nearly there. So we just need to be a bit careful on this last one, just to make sure we don't lean on anything that is still a bit wet. So we do need to let this completely dry before we add any pencil, because as I'm using watercolour pencils but then dry, any wet in the page would activate them, and that might be what you're after, but obviously we want to use them as coloured pencils for this next part of the exercise, so we do want this to be completely dry. So there we are. So that's all of our water added, and I'll come back when this is dry enough to show you the next part. So our pumpkin's now dry, and I've zoomed in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take each colour that I laid down and detail on top. Now I'm going to do what I call my scribble scumble, which is a play on the scumble technique, but rather than doing it really neat, I kind of scribble. So I'm just going to show you how that works. And I'm just taking the pencil for this crazy sort of scribbly dance, really. Then I lace it into these other colours. So where I want, to neaten up my edges, I'll do that. We're keeping some of the original texture from the watercolour pencils, but just adding in on top. So now I'm going to go to gold, which is what I'd use down this side. Just move that up a little bit. So again, it's all the same. Now you could scumble much more neatly when you do the tiny circles and really fill in the tooth in the paper. And I do sometimes do that, but for this particular piece, I really like seeing the marks of the pencil. I really do like sort of mark making and seeing that history or the memory of the strokes. I just think it's just a really lovely effect. So that is what I'm doing in this video. There's obviously lots of other techniques you could do in this example, but that's what I'm going to show you here. I'm not going to worry too much that I've got that mark there. I may do something with that in a minute. You can see I'm just sort of lacing it in. I'm going to take this darker pencil now, and I just going to add a little scriggle there. I'm not really thinking very much about what I'm doing. It's very intuitive, this process. I just let the pencil go for this kind of crazy dancing motion, really. And I'm always surprised what effect I'm going to get. I know vaguely what it's going to look like, but part of the joy for me is that I don't really know what the final outcome's going to be. And that's just part of my art process. That might drive you bananas, and I would understand why. But I invite you just to embrace this different way of working and just see how you get on. You might hate it and think I'm never doing that again, but I'd love you just to just to give it a go and see how you feel about it once you've had a go. So I think this might have been the lighter orange. Let me just try. Yeah, that looks right. So again, I'm not looking to get rid of the texture of the watercolour pencil underneath. I'm really just looking to enhance it. I might just add a little bit over here. Again, I'm just making decisions on the spot really. Oh, you know, will that look nice over there? Yeah, probably. Let's add a bit. As I said earlier, I'm not using a reference. This is all just coming out of my mind and what I think needs to be done on the paper. So let's move over to this one. I'm going to start with this orange, and it's all the same technique. It's this scribble, making a little dance. If you think, oh, I don't like the look of that squiggle I've just done, you could just go over it. It all sort of disappears. I do vary my pressure a little bit, so where I'm on an edge and I want a more solid edge, I will press a little bit harder. And where I'm kind of feathering it into the other colours, I press a bit lighter. Just going to add some green in here. A bit of gold. So you could have done this with any colours and any subject really. Do this a lot in this sort of style in pattern work. So the watercolour pencils have done a lot of the work here really, because they've filled all your colour in for you. So all you're really doing is sort of embellishing now. And you could use this technique, you know, the watercolour pencil base, to then do some really beautiful realistic work on top. You know, it just fills in that base colour really quickly, which can be really helpful. Like I said, it does mean it's sort of mixed media, but that may not worry you. So, you know, it can be a time-saving hack if you like. Okay, so let's move on over. This bit has kept a lot of its mottled texture, which is quite nice, you know, like that. When you look at the skin of a pumpkin, it can be quite bobbly, or a squash. It's just giving a sort of flavour of that really. Got quite interested in how you recognise something as something without it being realistic. Like, what tells you that that's a pumpkin or a tree, even if it's not a photograph or a realistic representation. There are clues that tell us what it is, and getting something to that simplest form can be, you know, quite a lot of fun. You can learn a lot about that subject by thinking, how do we recognise that? I'd have worked on a smoother paper, we would see the pattern work a little bit more. So if I just show you on this one again, you can see some of my squiggly work a bit more clearly. So the paper does make a difference. Again, this would be a really good way of experimenting, see which you like the effect of most. I'm just going to work on this centre stalk. So I'm still using that squiggle technique to darken the edge, using a little bit more pressure on this edge bit. Just to give that darker edge, so it's sort of becoming light in the centre, which is what I like. You might prefer something else. Do you like a ombre effect? There we are. So I'm going to keep working round exactly the same way as I have done so far, and we'll meet back up at the end. Okay, so I've done all my scribbly scumbly pencil work, and what I want to do now is add in these rays that are coming off. Now on my example here, I did all of this just in pencil, just dry colour pencil, but because this paper is so rough, I think I am going to need to dissolve it. So I'm just going to show you, I'm going to add the strips in, just like I did before on all the other versions we've done. I've gone for the chocolate, like the centre. So obviously I didn't tell you exactly which colours I was using, but I've just gone for my centre stalk colour. You could do any colour you want here. I'm only just going to take it a little way down, and what we're going to do is dissolve this and then fade it out. That's the theory. So let's see how that goes. So I'm just going to work all the way around. Again, I'm not being too fussy here, but I am just making sure that I'm keeping it within the sort of rays, if you like, rather than onto our segments. So I didn't do this on the other one, not the dissolving it part, or adding the water, but I just think this is going to look better on this one. So if you can hear my little putty cat in the background there. So I'm only taking it just a little way down, because I'm gonna, like I say, try and fade it out, but we'll see how that works. Everything is always an experiment when I do art. So we're nearly all the way around. Okay, just one more to go, and this will finish off our lovely pumpkin and squash colours. So we've got our pencil work in. I'm going to go back to my really thin brush because I think we're going to need a bit of precision here, and I'm probably going to work, so where I've worked clockwise before, I'm probably going to work anti-clockwise, but let's have a go and see what I end up doing. So I'm just going to start adding water. I want to be quite precise here. Get some more water, because what I'm hoping to be able to do is just fade this a bit down to the centre. Okay, now I might need to sort of neaten up my edges again, but let's just keep going and see what happens. See, I splodged a little bit there. Just, if you need to correct anything, do so. I'm adding water once I get past where the pigment is, just to try and fade it out a bit. What I might do is just try and bring that really light brown around here. Now I have to say I'm not a natural painter. I was never very good with a paintbrush, but I've come to really love painting, and with practice I have definitely got better. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near perfect with my brushwork, but I do really enjoy it, and I think I've come to really see art as something to really enjoy. If I'm not enjoying it, then I tend to not do it, so I do try and make sure that I enjoy my art practice. I do really love this effect when you add the water in it and it changes. As I've said earlier, it just gives me a lot of joy. I find it fascinating. So you see, I'm just pulling the colour across a little bit just to give that sort of ombre effect, really. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's quite a rustic pumpkin, I'd say, or squash. Just adding that water just to fade it out. Got a little mark there, but there we go, pick that up. So we're getting round now. You can see this precision paintwork does take a little bit of time and patience, but and if I was doing this myself without the camera on, I probably would take a little bit more time and care, but just want to give you an idea. You see that one's a little bit darker for longer, but it's all fine. Like this, you know, this is a very organic process. I just think each piece has a little spirit of its own, and I just embrace its uniqueness. Okay, so last one. You can see that all right. Add some water there, just try and fade that out. Just going to pull that across into there. Now obviously, if you were to go into where our pumpkin segments are, that would, you know, because I've used watercolour pencils on top again, that would activate the pigment again, which we don't want to do too much of. But as you can see, it hasn't, you know, because I've been quite precise, it hasn't activated it too much. This is where having nice precise paintwork does help, but you know, as I said, this is quite a rustic piece. People wouldn't notice if you'd gone a little bit into your segments once they see the whole piece. So there we are. So this is our pumpkin. I really hope that you enjoyed this project and had some fun with some mark making. Again, I would absolutely love to see them if you give this a go. I will be doing a tie-dye one. I'm not sure if I'll film it or not, but I will show you the results. And yeah, please do get in touch and show me what you've been up to with this tutorial. I really would love to see. And I'll catch you on another video. Thanks a lot.